Hey everyone, today I'm talking about the brand new Morgana expansion for Merlin, which is one of my favourite games by Stefan Feld. Came out a couple of years ago now by Queen Games, and this one, as you can see, is the third expansion and probably the most involved of the expansions to come out yet. So it's a modular expansion with a lot of bits and bobs with it, as you can see. Some of them are simple, some of them are a bit more involved, but I'll talk through them as we go. So let's start off with the very basic additions here. So you've got two new resources. You've got coins. Now, coins are useful because if you spend a coin, then you can manipulate your dice pips up or down by one. Sixes cannot roll back around to one and vice versa. But as you can probably tell, they give you a bit of versatility and flexibility with your starting dice. You've also got this Mistletoe here, and the Mistletoe is useful because it substitutes one of the criteria for those scoring cards. So, if you only had two of the three required resources on those cards, then you can discard a Mistletoe and complete that mission nonetheless. Something I should say as well is that if you have coins left at the end of the game, you think you're going to get 3 points for every pair of those. So they're quite valuable, even just to store up. Now, because of those additional resources, you're going to get a brand new rondelle just to depict those new resources on them. So as you can see, these apple spots now have mistletoe on them, and there are spaces for coins as well. Naturally, this one has the Arthur expansion embedded into it, but if you flip it over, you've got it without the Arthur expansion. So it is standalone, and you do not have to play this one particularly with the Arthur expansion. So that's the starting kind of things you get. So let's see what else you get here. So you've got this new market sideboard here, which I think I quite like. So in addition to all that the uses of those coins, you can actually spend a coin as a bonus action to take one of these resources available. So for example, if you want a particular shield, you can spend a coin and take one of those. You can take one of the construction materials. You can take one of these apple/mistletoe tokens, which are obviously very flexible. You can take these, I think they're called day workers or day riders, where you actually have a bonus action at the end of your turn and can basically move one of your knights the spaces depicted on here. So they're quite nice as well and can give you a bit more boost on your turn. And on top of all that, you can actually buy one of these +1 markers, which bolster your control tokens when you on top of the castles on each of the principalities. So they're quite good as well if you want to dominate that area control. I do like this one. I will say that you do have to sacrifice your ability to cash in a card in order to go to the market, but I like the fact that it doesn't constitute your whole turn, and it just adds that extra layer of mitigation there, and enough extra option to go down should you find yourself backed into a corner and not having the resource you want. So I do like this one quite a lot, and it's quite an easy addition that I'll probably put in most of my games. Next up, I have there's quite a significant change here with these districts. Now these, as you can probably see by the look of them, are going to cover up the original principalities on the main board itself. So they're slightly different, where rather than every region being exactly the same, they all have their kind of speciality here. So as you can tell with this region, it's going to be focusing on the flags. So all the flags are going to be on this board rather than spread out amongst all the districts. And you've got your spaces for your kind of specialists here. But rather than having to play a particular one, you can play anything in order to get the flags. But if you play your flag bearer, you can get 2 of the flags, as you can see here. And this works the same for all the different regions. So as I said, if you put your shield bearer on here, you get 2 shields rather than just the one if you play something else. You've also got your lady in waiting here. Lady in the lake, in order to place your control markers on each of the districts. But I quite like the way this changes things up, and it just gives a slight variance on the original game and kind of changes the flow of the game a bit. You've got slightly different ones here as well, where if you place one of your workers on here, you can get a combination of apples and mistletoe, or even this one here, which adds a lot of flexibility by converting 4 goods into 4 goods of your choice. So I think I'll probably use this in at least half of my games going forward. I do quite like the change here, and I think it just makes things a bit easier to get, especially if you want to deploy your flag bearers and get loads of flags, etc. But naturally, you're going to have to wait until you go all the way around the rondelle to get back to it. So probably not a massive change, but it does throw the game on its side just a little bit. And the final module for the expansion is the Morgana Board, which is obviously the namesake of the expansion itself and probably the most involved of the expansion box in its entirety. So this one allows you to sacrifice a turn using one of your Knight die, one of your Arthur dice, or even one of your Merlin dice in order to use one of these Morgana dice. And when you do that, you are going to place this Morgana token, at least for the first turn, on one of the principalities on the board, and then that space is going to be blocked off. So you can really use that to your advantage and stop other players getting to spots that you know that they want to. But from then on, whenever you take one of these actions, you are going to obviously take the depicted value matching the symbol, matching the pip value. So for a 1 or a 2, you can use any of these ones, or for for a 3 or a 4, you can use these ones, and for a 5, you can use these ones. As a 6, you can use anything at all. So it's a wild. But when you do that, you are going to have to move that Morgana token, either 1 space adjacent, 2, or even 3, so that it's constantly in flux in terms of being the space that's blocked off. But these actions let you do some quite powerful things, such as being able to flip a die to any face that you want, and that can count for any of your dice or even your opponent's die. You can convert goods into money. You can deploy these control tokens controlled by Morgana, and they are going to basically boost your existing control tokens to give you a better chance to win the majorities. But if you haven't got a token there, you can just place them on there, which means that Morgana will just dilute the point scoring pool. You've also got these huts here, which go onto the region board, and they can, just a bit like these really, they boost your existing castles and give you extra control. And if you completely control and dominate a region, then they give you an additional point if you do that. And finally, this one here, which is probably my favourite one, lets you switch the positions of Arthur and Merlin, or yours and an opponent's position of your knight on the main board. So they can give you some quite cool actions. On top of that, you've got some additional things you can do, such as being able to purchase one of these poisoned apples, and these let you swap a dice value with an opponent. So if I had a 1 and my opponent had a 6, and he hasn't used it yet, I can use one of these apples to swap my 1 for his 6, which I quite like that level of interaction, although it seems a bit nasty. I think you're going to do that more to help yourself rather than hinder your opponent, which I don't mind as much. And finally, the main thing here relates to this kind of drinking horn, where if you convert a Merlin die and boost it up with either building materials or coins to make it a 7, then you get to take the drinking horn, which means at the end of the round, you are going to score a number of points equal to the current round. So it does ramp up as the game goes on, and probably the control over that one is going to be quite important and significant. And on top of that, you also get a poisoned apple and an additional point. So that concludes everything that's in the expansion. As you can see, you can pick and choose what you want into it, which I generally like with expansions. I like the modularity of it. But just to quickly go through, I'll always include these coins and the mistletoe with obviously the new board. I'll probably always include this market board because it doesn't really add any housekeeping or anything. It's just a nice option to use. This one I probably won't use all the time, although it's obviously what the main thing is about. But I think with maybe more experienced players who've played Merlin, more than a time or two, I'll probably include this one because I do like the way this is embedded and adds some nice player interaction, a little bit of meanness, but not too much. And again, with these ones, I'm going to use them probably almost every time, but not always, because even with new players, this isn't going to make the teach any harder. It just adds a slightly different variance on the existing game. So overall, I'm quite happy with this expansion. It's not revolutionary, it's not game-changing, but it's nice nonetheless, and it's certainly got some additional welcomes. Just the extra mitigation and all the different modules is nice. So that concludes my thoughts on Merlin Expansion 3 Morgana. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please hit like and subscribe to my channel and check out my other videos too. For everyone else, I'll see you next time on Chairman of the Board. Bye.